How are you guys doing? This is Paradox again with another installment of Luminaries. Now, you might have seen one of my previous blogs, or read something I might have put on MySpace, but in that I've never actually explained what I mean by Luminaries. Why do I call my presentation Luminaries? Now, Luminaries is my concept of the two philosophies of light that exist in our world today. And these two philosophies influence every aspect of our lives. It's a tug of war going on back and forth. And all of our decisions and actions and everything, believe it or not, are influenced by these two philosophies. Now, I call one philosophy the external path, and the other one is the internal path. Now, the external path is generally what's supposed to be known as Christianity. Now, what I mean by Christianity, I don't mean the denominations and everything going on. I don't mean that. I mean like Christianity in its purest form from the Bible. Now, the internal path is generally what we call humanism. And what I'm going to do is we're going to go over the definitions of everything, and we're also going to go over the metaphors themselves, all the metaphors for light, to make sure that we're all on the same ground, and then we can understand what philosophies, the philosophies of light themselves, and what they mean and how they influence us. Now I'm going to read some references from what I call the external path. That is the path of faith, the path of Christianity. And it's very easy because they're all contained in the Bible. So I'm going to use a standard King James Bible, and we will go over them right now. And I will start with the first text, which is a very popular text. I'm sure we all know it already, whether you're Christian or not. Genesis chapter 1 verse 3. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. Psalms chapter 27 verse 1. The Lord is my light and salvation. Psalms 37 5-6. That is Psalms chapter 37 verses 5 and 6. Commit your way unto the Lord. Trust also in him, and he shall bring it to pass. And he shall bring forth your righteousness as the light, and your judgment as the noonday. Now, I'm a fast talker, so I'll try my best to slow down and read slow. Psalms 97, chapter 97, verses 10 and 11. You that love the Lord, hate evil. He preserves the souls of his saints. He delivers them out of the hand of the wicked. Light is sown for the righteousness, and gladness for the upright in heart. Proverbs chapter 4 verses 18 and 19. But the path of the just is as the shining light, that shines more and more unto the perfect day. The way of the wicked is as darkness. They know not at what they stumble. Proverbs chapter 13 verse 9. The light of the righteous rejoice, but the lamp of the wicked shall be put out. Whole lot of light. Matthew chapter 5 verse 16. Let your light so shine before men, that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. And another famous one, using the metaphor of light, John chapter 1 verse 1. And I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'll just focus on the parts that talk about light. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. And the light shineth in darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. There was a man sent from God, whose name was John. The same came for a witness, to bear witness of the light, that all men through him might believe. He was not that light, but was sent to bear witness of that light. That was the true light, which lighteth every man that cometh into the world. Again, that was John chapter 1, verses 1 to 9. But it keeps going. But I don't want to, I don't want the audience to lose focus of what I'm showing them here. Now, on the path of righteousness, or the external path, that is the path we also call Christianity, the metaphor of light is used to represent righteousness. It's also used to represent Jesus. Now, I looked up that word, and that word they use in the Old and New Testament. That is in the Hebrew and the Greek. The Hebrew was the word, it is the word or. And I will read the definition of that word straight from the concordance, because you know my style, I like to reference everything. Here goes the concordance. Strong's exhaustive concordance. If you want to get into the words, the Hebrew and the Greek, to really understand, you know, what's being said. Now, the word for light all throughout the Old Testament is the Hebrew word or, which means illumination or concretely luminary. And also in every sense, luminary in every sense, including lightning, happiness, etc. Also bright, clear, daylight, morning, sun. So every text that I read, when the word light was used, it's an all-encompassing light. It's all-encompassing, you know. And interesting, it also means happiness. Now, the two texts in the Hebrew, in the Greek, that is when I was reading John 1 and also Matthew 5, it used the Greek word, which is phos. That's how you pronounce it, phos. It also means to shine or to make manifest, especially by rays. It also means luminous in the widest application, naturally or artificially, abstract or concretely, literally or figuratively. It also means fire and light. So you can see in the Old and New Testament, and why I want to read from both sides is that some people for some reason think that the Old and New Testament is separate and against each other. And they're not. It's just all one long story. It's one long historical, document. Now, so you can see in the Hebrew word or is light in the widest sense. It also is literal as well as figuratively. It's just like the Greek word phos, which is also literal and figuratively. They're both in the widest sense. So there you see in Christianity, in the Bible, God uses the word light to also mean righteousness. Now, since that is done, I want to go over the metaphors and the definitions of the internal path. That is the path of humanism. And I will show you why there is such a tug of war between Christianity and humanism in the world and how it's influencing us. Now that we're going to go over the path of humanism, that is the internal path, we need to be on the same page and to really see where I'm going with this. And to do that, we have to go to where it all started. And believe it or not, it starts in Genesis 3. That's where humanism started. So I will read, well, for those of you who don't know, Genesis, the book of Genesis in the Bible, is where the story of the whole creation of man begins. You have the 6 days of creation, and you have the seventh day where God rested. The word Sabbath literally means rest, and he blessed that day. And that's also very significant to what's going on, but that's just another study. Now, Adam and Eve was living their life, everything is fine, and then the serpent came and suggested to Eve, I would never say force, he suggested of taking of a particular tree that was in the garden called the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And remember that knowledge of good and evil, and that if she ate from the tree, that she will become as a god or like God. So it's very significant to remember those points. She did eventually eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So it's knowledge, good and evil. You have that, and as a result, or she was told, you have that, and you become a god. That was the beginning of humanism. That's in Genesis chapter 3. That is where the separation began. So now there was no longer a reliance on God external. There was a desire to rely on the human self. That is to become God internal. Now I'm going to read that text itself. I'm sure many of you have never read it. And I'm not really doing this for religious people. I'm just doing this for the average person who wants the information And, I'm hoping that you will take this and continue to do your own research. Because I can't even go over everything. It's so much. There's no way I'll be able to go over everything. But now I'm starting in Genesis chapter 3, verse 1. Now the serpent was more subtle than any other beast of the field, which the Lord God had made. And he said unto the woman, Yea, has God said, You shall not eat of every tree in the garden? And the woman said unto the serpent, We may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God hath said, You shall not eat of it, neither shall you touch it, lest you die. And the serpent said unto the woman, You shall not surely die, for God does know that in the day you eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and you shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. So there you go, knowledge of good and evil. Eyes will be opened. That pretty much means understanding. You shall gain understanding, and she will be as gods. Now notice the words. You wouldn't not be God, but you'll be similar to a god. Continuing on verse 6. And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree to be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof, and did eat, and gave also unto her husband with her, and he did eat, and the eyes of them both were opened. Now notice what happened, right? There was an opening, and there was a realization. So if they ever reached the godhood what they desired, I don't know. I could never say. But that, as we could see, was the beginning of humanism. Now, I took down the definition of humanism for those who don't know, because if you don't know, you won't see the connection. And I took the key points because this is a whole lot of reading as well, and I don't want you to lose the point of what I'm making. I will try to read as slow as possible, because I know I'm a fast talker and fast reader. Humanism is a broad category of ethical philosophies that affirm the dignity and worth of all people, based on the ability to determine right and wrong, there you go, knowledge of good and evil, by appealing to universal human qualities, particularly rationality, in focusing on the capacity for self-determination, that is internal. Humanism rejects the validity of transcendental justifications. Humanists endorse universal morality based on the commonality of the human condition, suggesting that solutions to human social and cultural problems cannot be parochial. Now that last sentence, parochial, in that last sentence they use the word parochial, which pretty much means, in this sense, they don't believe that the solutions to the human problems, that is to solve the problems in the world, we can't be narrow-minded. We can't think locally. Solutions could only be global. And you have to understand that too, to really understand all that's going on right now. Everything, humanism, the humanist thought, their methods are global, not local. I'll continue on. As humanism encompasses intellectual currents running through a wide variety of philosophical and religious thought, several strains of humanism allow it to fulfill, supplement, or supplant the role of religions, and in particular to be embraced as a complete life stance. So that is, humanism itself, although it rejects religion in the general sense or traditional sense, can also replace religion and become your religion. According to humanism, it is up to humans to find the truth, internal again, as opposed to seeking it through revelation, mysticism, tradition, or anything else that is incompatible with the application of logic to the observable evidence. Also, humanism asserts that knowledge of right and wrong is based on the best understanding of one's individual and joint interests, rather than stemming from a transcendental truth or an arbitrarily local source. And transcendental is above and beyond, spiritual, whichever definition you want to use. So they reject the above and beyond. And also, it says right here, or an arbitrarily local source. They don't believe in local. Everything is, so humanism, if I could, sum it up, is the search for truth, or the knowledge of right and wrong, knowledge of good and evil, which one you want to use, but based on our own reasoning and rationale and logic. It's internal. It's all internal. Also, in the quest for self-determination, that is, us deciding our own destiny, we reject, or a humanist rejects, all transcendental influence, anything above and beyond. Also, humanism, the outlook of humanism is not local, it's global. Now, I would like to read, even before that, you understand, this whole thing that Eve fell was for a special knowledge, right? The knowledge of good and evil. Knowledge, you got to keep in mind knowledge, right? Understanding, wisdom. She said she believed it could make her wise. Now, let's look up some definitions of, what we consider to be knowledge and understanding. And, for example, the word to enlighten. This is from the New Lexicon Webster's Dictionary. To enlighten, to give someone information about or help him to understand what is obscure or difficult. But it also means to civilize by freeing from ignorance and superstition. Enlighten, light. Also, let's look up the word itself, light itself. Light, the wave band of electromagnetic radiation, the wavelengths of 3,800 angstrom units and 7,600 angstrom units. That's talking about the light that you can see. But light also has another definition. Mental illumination. The power to explain things. The light of reason. Mental illumination. You understand what I'm saying? Their eyes were opened. They were illuminated. You see the connection between what happened and the definitions themselves? Reread Genesis 3 and see what happened to them when they ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Their eyes were opened. They were enlightened. They were illuminated. The mind. Opening of the mind. What do we say when someone is bright? We say they're brilliant. You're bright. When you see the cartoons, someone has a good idea, a bright idea. You see the light bulb opens up over their head. That's the connection. It's all about knowledge. Or more specifically, a special knowledge. Read a very interesting, I got here a copy of the Humanist Manifesto, right? You can get this online and read it yourself if you want to, if you choose to. And going over this, I found something very interesting, which is the 14th article of the Humanist Manifesto. And this shows you how, what I revealed or read here, that their outlook and method is global. It's very broad-ranging. They don't see things locally. 14th article of the Humanist Manifesto, the original Humanist Manifesto, which was put together in 1933. The humanists are firmly convinced that existing, acquisitive, and profit-motivated society has shown itself to be inadequate, and that a radical change in methods, controls, and motives must be instituted. A socialized and cooperative economic order must be established to the end that the equitable distribution of the means of life be possible. The goal of humanism is a free and universal society in which people voluntarily and intelligently cooperate for the common good. Humanists demand a shared life in a shared world. You know what this is? This is communism here. This is socialism, or it's Marxism. They're all the same thing, And that is the 14th article of the Humanist Manifesto. That is. Now we've reached the conclusion of the introduction of Luminaries and what it means. That is the two philosophies of light that influence our world. We have the external path. That's the path of faith. Generally what we call Christianity. And we have the internal path. The path of special knowledge. Generally what we call humanism. Now they both use the metaphor They use light as a metaphor to describe themselves. So in the external path, that is the path of Christianity, right? The metaphor of light, light means righteousness. On the internal path, light means special knowledge, which is supposed to make you into God in the long run. Now, I hope you was able to understand the connections between everything as to why my conclusion is that humanism started in the Garden of Eden when Adam and Eve decided to separate from God and become their own gods. I hope you understand when I read the definitions of light itself. It says to enlighten and to open one's mind and to civilize by separating from ignorance. That's very important to understand. And also, I believe you should look up these definitions yourself and keep them around. I hope you understand why I read the 14th article of the Humanist Manifesto, which pretty much says part of humanism, or one of the tenets of humanism, is communism, or socialism, or Marxism, whichever one you want to pick. It's all the same thing. It's all one and the same. I hope you understand why I emphasize the word change when I read it in the 14th article. I'm sure you've been hearing that a lot lately. Now, understand that communism is part of humanism in action, right? And humanism is the philosophy of communism. It is the foundation of communism. They are both all the same. It's like a wheel turning. They both support each other, and they keep each other going. Now, we will have to continue this study because this thing is huge. It's just huge. And I'm sure some of you know what I'm talking about already. I'm sure some of you know where this is going. If you look around at all the economic challenges that's been happening lately, you see the connections between everything. And remember that the two philosophies affect every sector of our lives, every sector of society. And the two philosophies don't see the world as sectors. That is, we look at finance, we look at health, we look at entertainment, we look at education as separate things, where they're really all one and the same thing. On the highest level, they're all the same. So again, I hope my goal was to get you aware of the two philosophies and the metaphors, so you could always be on the lookout for them, and to also understand what they mean and where they're going. And I will continue this, I'll continue with another presentation later on. It takes time to put these things together. It's a lot of reading and a lot of studying, and it's very expensive to buy all the books too, and I've been buying a lot of books to put this thing together. So we will continue this another time, and if you have any questions, just send your comments or contact me directly on MySpace. I'm probably the easiest person to find, and I will speak to you guys later. Peace.